Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 52 of the 3 a.m. Knitter podcast. My name is Anne, and I am the 3 a.m. Knitter. So welcome to you. If this is your first time here, I'm happy that you have decided to give the podcast a try. And if you enjoy yourself, I encourage you to please like and subscribe, as we say here in podcast land. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. Thanks for coming back. Okay, so episode 52, there we go. You know the drill. All my contact information is down below in the show notes, email, snail mail, all my socials, that kind of stuff. You'll find it down there. I'd love for you to comment on the episode because the engagement helps keep things rolling. And please do, if you haven't, please do like and subscribe. Okay, so today's a very special episode. I just have a couple of very quick updates for you. And then I will be sharing the first episode of my Meet the Maker series. So this is a project that I am working on in 2025, where I will be from time to time featuring an amazing Canadian maker. Today we are meeting with Mable and Rose from Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I think that you're just going to love. You're going to love this time that we spend with Alana from Mable and Rose. She's a gem. So, and I'm actually wearing one of her creations right here. These amazing earrings. So, yeah. So we're going to talk about things like her process, how she transitioned from one career into this career. We're going to talk about where she gets her inspiration, her creative process, all of that kind of stuff, and what's up next for Mable and Rose and things like that. So stay tuned a little later for that. And tune in regularly, because I don't have a every 2 weeks I'm going to have one of those episodes, but I really want this to be an organic type of offering for the podcast. So make sure that you watch my Instagram feed to see when the next episode and who's up next. And if you are a Canadian maker who would love to have a conversation with me and share all about your business, or you know of a Canadian maker who you'd like to see featured, let me know, because I'd be happy to reach out to them. Because now more than ever, it's important for us to be supporting local. Like I said in one of my reels yesterday, it doesn't necessarily have to be just Canadian, meaning local. Maybe it's just as or more important to be supporting those grassroots local, right? So let me know what you think, or if you know of anybody who you'd like to see featured in the Meet the Maker series. Okay, so before we dive into that, I want to talk to you about the test knit that I'm doing for my LYS Natural Ewe Yarns. So of course, I talk about them almost every episode. You find them here in Pictou, Nova Scotia, and I'm so fortunate that they are literally 4 doors down the street from me. So like across the street and 4 doors down, I can see the store from my studio window. So how lucky is that? So you will recall, I'm quite certain, and if you aren't, go check out my Instagram, that I did finish the test knit for the slip stitch raglan sweater. And I posted a picture of it on my Insta. Now, I tried it on, and I should have known this before, because I've knit raglan sweaters before. I should have paid attention, and I should have tried it on before I split for the sleeves. Put the sleeves on waste yarn or barber cord, and then started the body. I should have done that, and I didn't. Now, that being said, there's nothing wrong with the pattern. It's just I know how I like my fit, and raglan sweaters are tricky for me. So I followed the pattern perfectly, and it works. There's nothing wrong with the pattern. But I added on to this issue of the depth of the raglan, my preference of the depth of the raglan. I added on to the problem by not continuing my striping in the body the way that I did in the yoke. And by this, I mean this. So you see this striping here. You see the, you know, there's like 5 rows or something here, and then I change color, 5 rows, then I change color, 5 rows, then I did the pattern. Well, what I did, and I don't know why I did this, is when I got to the body, I changed it up. I put like 10 rows, and then it just, and I really wasn't happy with the way it looked. And so what I knew is that because I wasn't happy with the way the striping looked, that I was not going to wear this sweater. And then when I tried it on, the sleeves, which there was nothing wrong with, the pattern is fine again, but my preference is to have a looser sleeve. Now, obviously on a raglan like this, I'm not gonna have a sleeve that's this loosey-goosey, right? This is gonna be slightly more fitted than that, but it was fitted for my arm. And I just don't prefer that. So again, nothing wrong with the pattern. It's just my personal preference. So even though I finished the sweater and all of the pattern instructions, you know, I gave my feedback and the pattern was fine, I decided in order for me to be satisfied with the sweater, I pulled the body back because I knew that with the striping, I was not going to care. I wasn't going to wear it. So I left the yoke just as it is. So you can see that here. And I'm just going to bring a little closer. Look at that slip stitch detail. Isn't that fun? Oh, I really love it. And I'm just using stash yarn. So this color here, this is Fleece Artist. And this is a yarn called Scout. I'll link to it. Anyway, so I undid my bind off and I pulled it back to the split for the sleeves, as you can see right here. And I've knit the body in the solid. And now that I've got a couple more inches to go, I've gone back to the striping and I'll do the same number of rounds for the rest of this. And then I'm going to bind off in the main color like I did for the neckline. Now for the sleeves, even though again there's nothing wrong with the pattern, I'm going to add a few more stitches in here just to make it a little bit more roomy for me. Now, the reason that I say this is because I intended this sweater to be a layering piece. So I'm going to be wearing something underneath it. So I didn't want the sleeve to be snug. I needed some extra room. So anyway, so I should have, I mean, I know I said I'd have it finished this week. Alas, it is going to be next week because I pulled half the sweater back. Anyway, I'm going to be far more happy with it. It did block, I need to block it again because I am house sitting still. I'm house sitting till next Wednesday, and I didn't have my blocking mats. I didn't have my pins. I didn't have anything. So I just, I gave it a quick soak and I kind of stretched it out as best as I could. So I didn't get a really good block, but I'm going to block it next week when I get home, and it should be great. So fingers crossed, I will be able to wear this as my what am I wearing next episode. So anyway, I am in love with this. Isn't that fun? And it's such a great way to use fun yarn. So basically this color here, this color yarn, this Fleece Artist was fingering weight, but I just held it double. Yeah. So anyway, a further update to follow on that. Now, I did say in my little post that I put up on Instagram that I was going to give you a little weaving update. I'm going to not give you a little weaving update today because I didn't do any weaving. I thought that I was going to get some work done on the weaving panel, but then I got engrossed in ripping the sweater apart and starting to reknit it. So most of my time is taken up by that. So there it is. All right, friends. So I'm going to leave you here, and we're going to just kind of transition into the Meet the Maker interview with Mable and Rose. I hope that you enjoy it. Please be sure to like and comment and head over to Instagram and follow Mable and Rose. All of the contact information for Alana is down below in the show notes, and I hope that you enjoy. Anyway, that's it for now. Take good care. I'll talk to you soon. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Meet the Maker series here on the 3 a.m. Knitter podcast. I am very, very excited and thrilled to be joined by the lovely Alana from Mable and Rose. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thanks for having me, Anne. I'm very excited to be here.
My pleasure. Okay, let's dive right in. So we're going to talk about Mable and Rose. We're going to talk about your creative process, how you got from one career to the next, your inspiration, how you do what you do, and why you do what you do. Okay, so let's jump right in with having you just give us kind of the high level overview of who you are and how you got to where you are today.
That's a long question or long answer, but I'll keep it as short as possible.
All right.
Because this is not at all where I expected to be at any point in my life, I suppose. But we usually get to where we are going by not expecting it, I find. So I started out my career in the military as a pilot. I wound up as a tactical helicopter pilot in Edmonton, and expected to spend my entire life doing that until my retirement. That's what my father did before me, and what I'd worked on all through high school and through my career to get to. But life, as it does, had other plans for me, and I sustained an injury during a training exercise that resulted in 2019 in being medically released from the military.
Yeah.
So I worked as a helicopter flight instructor for a couple of years, and I very much enjoyed that. I really enjoyed teaching. But the travel schedule and that didn't really work that well for me. So I ended up just settling down, and I guess I should add that where the here is in Halifax. My husband and I, when I left the military, we took the opportunity to pick somewhere across the country to go, and we decided to go near the ocean, as near as possible. And so I can see the ocean from my window. You can see the sunlight there from my window up there. And we're looking at where life is going to take us. And so while I was still instructing with the helicopter school, I decided on my time off, as I was a month on, month off job, to return to some of my creative endeavors, creative passions. I'd kept up knitting through while I was in the military. It's a great way. We always say that one of the very special skills you get in the military is learning how to hurry up and wait, and spend a lot of time waiting for things to happen. And so I found knitting very useful there. But I started to also then return to some other creative things that I had kind of tucked to the side while I was working. And Mable and Rose grew out of that and continues to grow. I believe it was about 2021 maybe, that I kind of started rolling into that. And yeah, that's how I've gotten to where I am today.
That's amazing. When you said about hurry up and wait, I kind of smile about that, because that's kind of the philosophy of Nova Scotia, right? You just kind of
slow it down, right?
Yes,
So
very
yeah, so
much so.
that fits right in then. So a pilot, this amazes me. This amazes me. And so there was one statement or one sentence that you wrote in your notes to me that reads this: the creative parts of my personality were fostered through my time in the cockpit.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
so I've pondered that for a while, because I mean, obviously I'm not a pilot. So, but I could imagine that being a pilot would mean, you need to be good at math, you need to be good at science, you need to be very specific and very, there's no gray area. Everything is very black and white. Um, so can you expand on how that kind of morphs into the creative side of your personality?
Absolutely. So a lot of it is very much as you described
Hmm.
there. And when I went into starting flying, I got my first license as in gliders when I was 16, I believe, and so started that very early. And it was very much you're going to study your sciences, you're going to study your maths, you're going to wrote a lot of rote learning, a lot of regulations,
Hmm.
a lot of things advancing, and you're going to follow all of these rules very closely. And that does, my husband would very much agree that that very much matches my personality. I like things to like rules. I like to
Yeah,
have things lined out. I like to know what's expected,
right.
which kind of also goes in the face of more of a creative mindset. But once I started working in the field a bit longer, I started to learn there are many different streams when you're flying. So that more rule-based, more uh, rote learning kind of part. While there are creative aspects to every
Hmm.
cockpit, I don't want anybody writing in the comments
Yeah.
there aren't. There are always gray areas. The creative side to it leans more into certain types of flying. So I went through and, for example, I decided I did not want to fly for airlines. That's not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to drive a big bus around, and that is much more of the very regulated. There are situations where there's lots of creative thinking, but it is for the most part day in, day out, that very structured way of
Hmm.
doing things. And I didn't realize I wanted to wind up in helicopters. And turns out I really did, because that is the more kind of creative side
Okay.
of flying. Helicopters have, well, everything has a lot going on, but helicopters have a lot going on. It's very much based on feel. It's not, there are rules and regulations, and you have to understand how the machine works, but it is very much okay, well, just once you feel this happening,
Mm.
we're going to make this change. Or once you feel, move the controls till you feel it's in the right spot. Even the emergencies in the helicopter cockpit are a lot more along those lines of, okay, yes, we need to know what the book says, but we also need to think about the particular situation and what else is this helicopter telling me? What else is the situation telling me? And so from that side of it, I very much had to lean more into the creative side of my brain to really think as you're going through things. And I really found that, especially in teaching, trying to
Mm.
learn your students' style, trying to learn what your students thinking, where they're coming from, what is going to help them understand this action that you're barely thinking about, that you're feeling
Right.
your way through. So that's kind of what I meant with the creativity part.
Yeah. That see, now that makes sense to me, because if I mean, not being a pilot, not understanding that there was a lot of how does this feel, and that dictates the decisions that you're
Mhm.
making. That tracks for me. That's interesting. So you're not so you're still on the West Coast. You take wrapping class at your local bead store.
Yeah, so that
Did
was
you
one of those hurry
immediately
up and
did you
wait
immediately
times.
know? Yeah. Did you immediately know when you took that class that, oh, here it is, I love this?
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to tell now because that was going on almost 15 years ago now.
Yeah.
But it definitely was something that I've done, all sorts of things through. through time. I've tried it all. We did everything from, my mom did Pisanki, the Ukrainian Easter egg dyeing when I was a kid, and I tried all of the things. And I did very much, there's something that drew me to this medium. I'm not exactly sure why, and I still, dabble in all sorts of other crafts, but it really did draw me in. And I think it also had a lot to do with the atmosphere at the shop that I was learning at. It was very welcoming. It was very open. It was, it was a spot that I was at very, very often for the year and a bit that I was in Comox.
That's awesome. Yeah, there is something about the space in, that you're doing these things in, that if it is inviting and gives you that kind of warm and fuzzy feeling. I mean, even you show that on your Instagram feed a lot too, when you're having your coffee and stuff like that. And it's in those old vintage, not Pyrex, but the Corral,
Oh, yes.
the Corral dishes and stuff,
that's at my local cafe here, Mrs.
Yeah.
Keith's Ryfield, and they have a whole collection of it, and you feel right at home.
Yeah, it's nostalgic, right? It feels, yeah, that's awesome. So why Mable and Rose? Where does the name come from?
This is one that I don't think I have on my Instagram either, because it's another one that's difficult to put into a concise number of words. So the easy part is Rose is my middle name. So it was part of me without it just being a company that was named after me. And then Mable is another nickname of mine. So I've always been a bit of an old soul. And I also became especially, slowed things down and was taking some time away after in the last couple of years after I was injured. And one of my friends, I think a friend from university, came up with the nickname for me of Mable. She said it was my retirement name, or my old lady name.
Nice.
And so I decided that if this was my retirement job, because I'm no longer working at the career that I initially started with, I thought it was a fitting little play on words and on nicknames to kind of go along with the philosophy of slowing things down, taking time, being creative. So
that's brilliant. I love that. Okay. Excuse me. So your creative process. We all have, different things that inspire us, or different ways of finding inspiration. So can you speak a little bit to your personal creative process? You did mention in some of your notes about ideas living rent-free in your head for a while. So when those ideas or those visions are living rent-free, how do they make it from that rent-free space to actually becoming a tangible piece?
So I like to, I think I see things everywhere, and this is what started, I think, with the wire wrap, and why it spoke to me. Is, it's a wearable piece of art, for one, so you're not putting it up on your wall, which I do by all means love.
Sure.
Beautiful pieces up on my wall, but it wasn't what I wanted to really be involved in. I'm a bit more of a practical nature than that. I like things to be functional.
Right.
And so when I was looking around in Comox, another one of the things that I really love doing there was being out on the beaches. And I've got that, I think most of us have this ailment, is I see something shiny and I want to pick it up. So I have pockets full of shells and pretty rocks, and all of that. I just can't help. It's a it's a neat color, it's a neat shape, and it's sitting right there, and it's not hurting anything to pick this little gem up and take it home with me. But now I've got it home with me, and I've got a jar and another jar, and what am I doing with it? And so I saw it was these kinds of shapes that first drew me into really playing with the wire wrap jewelry and what I could do with it. And so I would take these shells, or these, to me, pretty rocks. I'm not interested enough in the gemology kind of side of things to identify, or the geology side as well, to identify exactly what I'm looking at. To me, it's a shape, it's a color, it's a texture, and I would play with those. And that's initially kind of where I started, where branching off of beading jewelry. And so I would play with these shapes and make rings and make necklaces. And you have one of my more recent shell necklaces, actually, the
I do.
Art Deco style piece.
Hmm.
And I would take these and put them in ways I didn't want them to look like shells. And so I would, play with those shapes and look at them and move them around. And that's where my inspiration kind of started coming from. So I'd be looking around me. And as I've grown, my tastes and styles and things have grown and changed. And I turn now more to architectural pieces that I see quite often. I'm very much a mid-century, before it was cool, mid-century lover of those
Right.
kind of lines and Art Deco lines as well. And so those will tumble around in my head, and then they will come together when I grab out a giant bag of stuff that I have, sitting around. As now, as I've moved more into upcycled pieces, friends will give me bags of broken jewelry,
Mhm.
or I'll go to the thrift store and pick up some broken, chains and links. Not always broken, mind you, at the thrift store, but when it's already at the thrift store, it's already been discarded. And I'm not going to take a piece, I should say, I'm not going to take a piece of fine jewelry and take it apart. But if it's a fast fashion
Mhm.
costume piece, I'll, see something there. And so then those ideas that are in my head will kind of go to, oh, this chain would work perfectly for this, or this would work perfectly for that. And then I'll sit down and start to bring things together, and play with a shape and play with an idea. Sometimes those ideas will change over time. For example, I realized the earrings that I put on today were a
Nice.
piece that I made these a few years ago, and I made two. This is a freshwater pearl, probably from, and I was it Shipwrecked Beads in Comox. So probably from
Okay.
that time there, but I didn't make them until a couple years ago. And a link of from a necklace that was broken and I took apart. And I made two pairs kind of similar to this. The other one was bought by a vintage seller here in Halifax. And I, that was my original idea. But since then now, I've made multiple iterations that have grown out of this one idea. And so in my most recent
Like
collection,
this.
that is a very similar one. Yeah. And I have a
Yes.
pair of earrings that I had made again, maybe, and those ones I probably made 5 to 10 years ago, that have a copper kind of colored freshwater pearl with a couple beads hanging under them. And then, yes, this year I was like, I wear these a lot. I really like these.
Hmm.
And now I will make something similar into a new collection. And I had another piece in that same collection that has the same sort of dangling, the silver and the colors and the multiple links. Um, and it just, so yeah, it just, sometimes I wouldn't say necessarily repeating ideas, but building on something I've done before.
Yeah.
And other times it's something that like has been, as I said, living rent free in my head for a while and then just
Right.
appears.
So when you're creating your collections, do you, at the beginning, do you have a definitive idea of, okay, this collection is going to have 10 pieces. There's going to be, 3 earrings. There's going to be this, 4 necklaces, et cetera, et cetera. Or is it all just kind of an intuitive thing? When the collection's complete?
Definitely more on the intuitive side. Doing collections is something I've kind of moved into more recently, as I realized that I was sort of making more overarching pairings of ideas rather than single pieces. And so
Right.
I grew to that kind of organically and intuitively. And I also started moving towards the collections to make it a bit more manageable, because I could just, keep creating individual pieces
Sure.
forever. Now I'm also, because I moved into a business, I'm also pricing individual pieces. I'm photographing individual pieces. I'm marketing individual pieces. And it becomes a lot less sustainable in your own time frame, or
Hmm.
you're managing your own life. So I started kind of moving myself towards this idea of collections. So I will say that I'm probably done 3 or 4 runs in more of a collection idea.
Hmm.
And I'm still playing around with kind of how exactly I come to that. Is there a certain number of pieces? Is there a certain balance between kind of earrings, necklaces? Should I throw some bracelets in? That sort of mix. So I still play around with that a lot. But I do like to make sure that each one has a bit of a variety. and has a couple items that I can repeat several times, and then has a couple items that are standalones in showpieces, if you will, of the collection, where I'm only going to make 2 or 3 of them because that's all that I
Okay.
can make. So yeah, it's a bit of back and forth, but mostly on the organic
Okay.
side.
So your maybe not your most recent collection, but perhaps the one previous, I can't recall, your Be Glamorous, Be Generous collection. So talk to us about the charity support surrounding that one.
So this is one that I started off as a single collection, and I've ended up, I guess you would call it more of a line if you wanted, in that it
Mm-hmm.
travels through, it's traveling through into all of my collections now. So I'll have some pieces within a collection that will be made with materials that were sourced at a charity thrift
Okay.
shop and will give back to that charity. And some pieces are out of other parts of my collection, and won't be part of that. So that's how I've started to round that in, because I realized very early on that with this business, I didn't want it to just be a business about me and about what I'm making. The reason that I wanted to start this business, or one of the values that I wanted to found it on, was being able to give something back,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's through classes, through and workshops, through repairs and volunteering my own time. I do a market a couple times a year in Truro where there are a number of people, not just me, but who volunteer our skills. And people
Mm-hmm.
can bring in items, whether it's a vacuum cleaner or a pair of earrings or a sweater, and get some help in repairing it. So whether it's something like that, or by being able to donate some profits, I wanted that aspect has always been something I wanted to bring to this company. And so last year, it was, let's see, it was November of 2023. So I guess a year and a bit ago now.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to finally bring into place a more continuing, a more permanent part of that, in that I created a circular fashion line, if you will. So I've gone to, so if I started off with the Nova Scotia SPCA, and I went to the Nova Scotia SPCA thrift store in Dartmouth. And for anyone outside of Nova Scotia, the SPCA is the Humane Society here.
Mm-hmm.
So they care for companion animals that have been either abandoned or found or surrendered, and find new homes for them. And they are a no-kill shelter as well. So that was very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a thrift store to raise money for the charity. And so I went there and I just asked, what do you have, or do you have any jewelry that you can't put out on the floor, that you haven't been able to put out, whether that's, broken clasps, stretched elastics, scuffed beads. There was one necklace that had paint all over it, like whatever reason that is. And she was so excited to volunteer there and brought me like 4 big Ziploc bags,
Wow.
materials. And so I have taken those apart. I've salvaged what I can. I've even tracked kind of anything I couldn't salvage. So any of the garbage that I've made, I've kept aside so I could show at the end what has not been able to go into the collection.
Right.
And then I use that as I'm creating things. I'll sit down and my collection, my collection starts around sitting down and looking at what I've got.
Mm-hmm.
What can I make with it? And so I spent time with those materials as I was deconstructing and cleaning, and then reconstructing. And so anytime that I dig into those materials, I keep them set aside. 50% of the profits from whatever I make are sent back to the SPCA.
That's
And
brilliant.
thank you. And so after about a full year of doing that, and I will say that it wasn't a very large collection last year, because we were selling a house and moving and
Mm-hmm.
everything that goes along with that. So there was a lot of time not spent in my studio. But I was still very happy to see that by the end of the year, I was able to donate about $200 to
Wow.
Nova Scotia SPCA.
That's amazing.
It's
That's
a really good
amazing.
start.
Yeah,
And I was also able to take these materials that would have went into the garbage
exactly.
and make something that I hope someone will treasure and will continue to wear for a long time.
That's amazing. I love that. And see, and that's kind of the full circle of being a creative, right? So that's brilliant. So from an inspiration standpoint, are there any specific Canadian artists or traditions or stories or things like that that you go to regularly or even one off to get your inspiration? And talk to me about Doodle Journal.
So yeah, that's something actually, I'll start there because that's
Okay.
the Canadian company as well. And that was something I found last, I guess 2023 as well. I keep saying last year, but we're
Yeah. Yeah.
beyond, we're beyond that. Year before last.
Yeah.
I met her at a local market, and she makes these journals, and kind of adult coloring books, if you will, but they're on based on doodling as opposed to coloring. And that's something that is very much one of those things that we sit in a classroom, we sit in a lecture, we, and scribble on our paper. And we do that a lot when we're a kid. Not a lot of people, I think, continue that past, well, actually, I suppose you probably don't do it at university now since we're all on laptops.
Right.
Even I still had a notebook in front of me at university, but we don't necessarily kind of continue that practice very much. But it is something that is very freeing, very, you're not thinking about, am I drawing a perfect circle? Am I, making this look exactly right? And that's something that I had identified in my own creative practice, that sometimes I focus too much on trying to make something exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need to be exactly right. It needs to be constructed exactly right,
Right.
technically, but it doesn't need to be, within a fraction of a millimeter side to side on a pair of earrings. Your head's not like your head's between them. It's nobody's going to notice, right? So
Right.
that kind of thing. So I wanted to play a bit more and to be able to move my own practice out a bit to be a little bit less structured. And when I came across, and I'm sorry, I can't remember her first name, but the woman who created the Doodle journals, I thought it was a really great idea because it's a structured way to step
Mm-hmm.
outside of your comfort zone. And yeah, so that's something that I've shared a fair amount on Instagram that I've been using, not necessarily every day, but regularly, to help me expand my own creativity and get out of my own box and get out of my own head.
Mm-hmm.
So she'll
Yeah.
have a prompt on one page, a drawing or a doodling prompt. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's something as simple as, finish the swirls all over this page, or some of them are to color. And in that, I've played with different color combinations that I wouldn't normally have put together in my head. And it has expanded the color combinations I put together in my jewelry. And then on the other side, the other page in the specific journal, she has a journaling prompt, something, a question to ask yourself that maybe you don't really want to ask yourself, which are
Mm.
always the types of questions we steer away from if
Right.
you're not prompted to. Aside from that, I can't say that I would steer towards any specific artist. I tend to look more at the world around me as a whole.
Mm.
I will see, pieces of jewelry that I'm like, oh, well, that inspires something else in me. I don't
Sure.
copy specifically pieces that I see, but something that inspires me. And I've certainly had a lot of people who are very helpful along the way as I've been learning. I'm not going to go through mentioning a bunch of names because I'm going to leave a lot of people out, I'm sure. But I will mention one person is my cousin-in-law, my husband's cousin, in Montreal. She's a silversmith, and she creates a line of, or has created a line of brass jewelry. She focuses on brass, kind of alternative jewelry, and it's beautiful, and it's very. She has her brand, and she is very good at making collections and making pieces that you go, yes, that is a Lord Violet piece.
Right.
That right there. And she inspires me in that sense, but she's also very helpful with chatting and visiting and, oh, well, I'm having trouble sourcing this, kind of what are you doing on that? And so for
Mm.
her, it's her full business. This is how she makes her full living, and she does it very well. And so to me, that she will share her knowledge with me for my
Mm.
small business is really has really meant a lot over the years.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, you know, at least I've experienced people that are in the creative space are so generous
Yeah.
with their time, their knowledge, anything that you need, right? And I think that it just speaks to the type of people that do this work, Right. Yeah. So can you, if you had to pick out one project that you were super proud of,
Oh, I was dreading this
what would it
question.
be? I know, because there's so
Dreading this
many.
one because they're all my babies.
I know. But
Every
if,
time,
you
well,
know,
and this is
what
the
would it,
problem. Yeah, every time I
yeah.
make something or every time I make a new kind of collection of things, I'm like, oh, this is my favorite thing ever. And then I make something else and oh, this is my favorite thing. So I'd say usually from each collection, I kind of have something that really speaks to me. Kind of not, this is not pandering to you, but
Mm,
the pair of necklaces that I made, where you have one of them and the other one has also sold. It was an Art Deco and an Art Nouveau kind of inspired two shell pieces, and I think those ones are way up there because they were a very different way than I'd been using the shells previously,
mhm,
and a bit of different wire wrapping than I had been doing, and I was very proud of those pieces. But I think overall, what I'm most proud of is the custom pieces that I do, um, the new ones, but also the ones that take something that somebody already has
mhm.
and breathes new life into it for them.
Yeah.
And those come out of those markets that I volunteer at for the most part. And it's stringing back together, grandma's probably faux pearls. Well, this particular set I'm thinking of were faux pearls that were sitting in the back of this woman's drawer for years
Aw.
and broken and not being able to be worn, and being able to string that back together and have her be able to wear it again, and her daughter, to be able to wear it in the future.
Aw.
Those are the pieces that I think I'm the most proud of. And so this year I am taking my business more in that direction. I'm going to be
Mhm.
focusing a lot more on getting out there that I can and very interested in helping you repair or remake those pieces that mean a lot to you that you don't wear or are broken or have to be split somehow between three grandchildren or what have you. So those are the pieces that really mean the most to me.
Oh, see, and that's very much like a project that I work on. You've perhaps heard of it. It's the Loose End Project.
Yes.
And so that's where people have knitting, quilting, stitching, any type of craft project that perhaps a loved one had started but were unable to finish because they passed
Mhm.
before the piece was finished. And these get sent out to makers who are willing to finish the project for the family. So I'm working on a filet crochet
Mm.
tablecloth right now, and
That's a lot of work.
there's only half the pattern
Oh,
available, and it's an old like 1950s pattern. But it's those kinds of things that um, you do it because you can, and because you know that it's going to mean so much
yeah.
to the recipients, right? So that's important work, I think. Yeah, I can understand why that perhaps is one of your favorites. So what's next for Mabel and Rose?
So as I alluded to a little bit there, I'm moving a bit more into the custom and mending
Hmm.
space, or more into focusing on that. I still will be making my own upcycled pieces, but I'm gonna bring more of that focus into setting up specific times where people can drop pieces off to me, where we can do consultations and work together, pushing that side a bit more. And on that same vein, this year, another one of my focuses is going to be moving into more workshops and classes. I want to get people
Fabulous.
involved in making what they're wearing, in getting out there, getting away from behind their screens, and um, having a piece in the creative process. Again, still using those majority of upcycled materials. And more specifically, coming up, a couple things, fun things that I've got coming up are later in March. Here on March, I'm looking to make sure I get the date right, March 16th. It's a Sunday here. One of the local yarn store owners, Leanne of the Violet Unicorn, she gave me a call just last week and said, I want to do something fun because there's a lot of not fun stuff going on right now. I want to do something fun for our community and give back. So she's doing a fundraiser for Feed Nova Scotia, which is the food bank here in
Hmm.
Halifax. Well, I guess here across Nova Scotia, not just Halifax.
Right.
She's going to do a yarnival, a bit of a carnival for knitters. Very much from what she's described, very much kind of an old style. Come in, you know, pay your admission to the food bank, maybe pay a couple dollars here and there again to the food bank to play some different games. And I'm going to do a little make your own stitch marker progress keeper station as part of the events there. And what else do I have coming up is, in September, myself and Penelope of Yellow Petal Handmade, who make
Mm,
beautiful project bags for knitters and crocheters and or pencil bags or whatever
yeah.
you can think of to put into a beautifully made fabric pouch. We did Woolstock East, a fiber festival out here. We did that last year, and we're going to be going back again this year.
Excellent.
So yeah, so I've got a few specific things coming up, and then a lot more kind of less specific
Right.
general items as I move along.
Oh, that's amazing. I love Yellow Petal Handmade. Her bags are beautiful.
They
So
are, and Penelope is wonderful to work with as well.
fabulous. So where can people find you?
So people can find me on Instagram,
Hmm.
Mable_and_Rose, and I'm sure we'll put that all below as well. Um,
Absolutely.
and my Instagram focuses on my jewelry. I do mention my knitting notions a little bit, but it focuses mainly on my jewelry. You can also find me for my jewelry. I have an Etsy shop. Of course, it is always the best option to contact a maker directly,
Mhm.
or if they have a website. I don't have a website at the moment, so it is still best to contact me directly, but you can see my jewelry on Etsy. And for the knitting notions side of things, and knitting jewelry side of things, I currently have a e-newsletter, and I send out a catalog by my e-newsletter. So we'll put a link to that. I'll make sure you have a link to that below,
Awesome.
Anne. Um, and that, I think, is about it. You can find me around Halifax as well, I should say. My
That's
jewelry
right.
is, yes, my jewelry is in Vivian Moderna at the Eastern T-Bar and PHIT'cetera. And my knitting notions are at the Violet Unicorn and Fia Fia.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I'll make sure that we put all those links down below. That's terrific. Um, and I'm just looking at my list of questions here, and I think I covered all the ones I wanted to cover. So, any last words of wisdom from Mabel and Rose?
Oh, words of wisdom. I'm not sure if I've got any of those, but just to look around you and see what you can make with what's there. Everybody's creative.
Mhm.
Everybody's got that spark in them, whether it's with a meal, with a garment, with um, painting, with writing, with we all have it. And if you just look around you, you can find some space and some time, make some time for that.
You sure
Um,
can.
yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for spending your Saturday morning here with me. This has been great. And I'll make sure to add all the links below so people can get a hold of you.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful
Uh,
chatting.
Thanks so much. Bye for now.